right by the lake. Uh, there we go. Perfect. Right by the lake. And yeah, graduated 2018, went back home to Chicago, and now I'm in an outpatient orthopedic setting. And it is great. It is great. So you guys are getting into a fantastic profession. Whatever you saw on whatever website that got you interested in physical therapy, it can be that and more. So you guys are making a great choice so far. So yeah, to give you guys the most value, I guess we can get into those questions so we can fire off and help you guys become accepted.
Yeah, so let's see. So I just have a few that came up quite a bit from my Google form, but first question is about shadowing. So how is everyone finding people to shadow during COVID times, and what can we do if we can't find anything? And I know you guys have something on your website specifically that's available to students, but
shadowing kind of messed everything up for everybody, right? So first thing is, there are still options out there now. Depending on the state, I know that gets kind of tricky. Just understand first of all why it's hard to get hours, because I think sometimes that just helps you make different decisions. And the biggest thing is obviously with COVID, they're trying to reduce as much, as many people as they can that are flowing through and working with patients. And so that's why it's harder to have volunteer hours. But one way, if you have the opportunity, one way to get hours now is clinics are still hiring. So if you want, if you're a PT tech or a PT aide, I know different clinics and places call it different things, but you're getting paid, but you're also getting hours. And they're more likely to give you that option or that opportunity because they need you, right? But a volunteer, they really don't need you there, right? Now, obviously, if COVID kind of calms down sooner than later, then things will go back to normal. But that's the first thing. Locally, private practices are always a really good place to start. So if you guys have private practices locally, talk to them. It's just think about it, like with a hospital or a big hospital system, too many people make decisions, right? But if I'm going to a private practice, it's usually like one owner, two people. So it's easier to kind of get in and figure out how I can serve them, how I can help them. And so that's really the first place to start locally. Now, as was mentioned, we did end up trying to solve this problem last year where we created a free virtual observation hour program. So I don't know if you guys are in it, but if you guys are not, go to observationhours.com and it's free. You don't have to pay for it, but we basically do case studies, myself and Casey, of patients that we've seen or are currently seeing, and you get hours. And we did that just because a lot of people were struggling with this. I think there's like 2,000 students in there right now. So if you guys are looking for hours, that's there, but at least locally, that's where I would start. Casey, what are your thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, that was it. That was it. I guess now to add to that, when you get to that clinic, that private practice, or hospital, or small nursing facility, whatever it is, I think it's just how you frame the question as well. I think right now, especially with COVID going on, you're like, oh my gosh, are you guys gonna deny me as soon as I ask, I need hours? Oh my gosh, what are you gonna say? When you don't really have to ask it like that, or you don't have to be scared like that. You just want to know what their procedure is, kind of like what Joseph was saying. What is your policy? So if you go to a private practice, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Owner, I know COVID's going on right now. I'm a pre-PT student and I'm looking for observation hours. I was just interested to know what your policy was for accepting pre-PTs, or what procedure do you have in place? If it's a bigger corporate clinic, you can say, is there anyone who I can talk to? Is there anyone who I should email who is in charge of the student observation hours to see how that works? You just want to know how things work so you know the next steps to or how to proceed with the next steps. You're not going saying, I'm a pre-PT, I need hours. Yes, no, no, all right, bye. You don't have to do all that. You just want to see what's going on and just kind of stay in their mind. So if something does come up where they're accepting, they know, oh yeah, in a month, in 2 months, we heard some rumblings about us opening it up again. Try back next month, try back in 2 months, or here, email this person, or call this line, so on and so forth. And I think that's a great place to start outside of our virtual observation hours. So yeah, good question.
All right, thank you guys. A lot of them are about hours. Now that I'm looking, the next one's kind of, it says, when is the right time to start gaining hours for your application?
As soon as possible. So the honest truth is, think about it this way, because I think this question usually gets asked with another one, which is, how many hours should I get? Right. So I usually hear, when's the right time? And then shortly after, it's like, okay, like, how many should I get? Should I go for 80 and then I'm done, 100 and then I'm done? And the honest truth is, a lot of you are sophomores. So this is the best time to do it. Think of it in reverse. Like, how is it helping you to have more experience, right? This is the profession that you want to do, right? Might as well do as much research on it, like with real people, as possible, right? And so I would start as soon as possible. I started as a freshman. I was like, wherever I can get hours, I'm gonna get them. And so for you, whether it's virtually or in person, start as soon as possible. The other part too is, we learned in 2020, you never know what could happen too. Like, nobody assumed that we'd have a pandemic that would basically do what it's done for the hospitals in hours. Like, I can't tell you how many students like we've coached that were like, yo, I was planning on getting, like, I had a whole bunch of hours lined up for summer of 2020 and now they're all gone, right? They were waiting for the end of their junior year right before they applied to PT school. And you never know. So why not play it safe and start as early as possible, but don't see it as some number you're trying to reach, because yes, there are requirements from the school. See it as, I'm trying to learn. Like, I'm excited about becoming a PT. I want to learn as much as I possibly can outside of just learning from a book. Like, I want to actually learn, like, what are PTs doing? How does the physical therapist think? Like, can I get into their minds? That's our motto with our virtual observation hours. Like, learn to think like a PT, because you're going to become a physical therapist. And so that's how I think about it. When you think about it that way, then you want to do it as early as possible for yourself, not just for the PT program, but for you. Does that make sense, y'all? Perfect. Casey, what are your thoughts on that, man?
I mean, you said it all. You took it away. So that was great. I started my observation hours, I believe it was my sophomore year. And I guess from another point of view, at first I just started early because I wanted to get them out the way. Like, I'm just being 100%. I started early. Let me get these out the way. I see my requirements. If I can do that, then I have more time to work on other parts of my application later on. So just being real, I didn't start thinking like that with observation hours until I was, later in my junior year and senior year, like, wait, I am going to be a physical therapist. Maybe I should ask different questions. Maybe I should think about this a little bit more. Maybe I should do my research, then come back to the therapist with different questions about what I should be expecting as a PT. But I'm going to keep it real. When I was a sophomore going, I was like, man, let me just knock these out real quick and get them out the way. So if that's you, if you were like me, I get it. So, I mean, start today, start tonight while you're listening. Just go on observationhours.com, and you can start getting your 1 or I think it's 2 hours that we give you on the intro videos, and let's get to work.
Okay, I did have it, pretty much all of them are about shadowing hours during COVID, but there's one that says how to build a solid application. I know it's super generalized, but if you've got some good tips for that.
Man, where to start? Where to start? Solid application. Let's start at the basics. So your application, when you think about your application, you might want to think of it from this point of view. Your application is very dependent on where you want to go. So let's just say you want to go to Clemson and somebody else wants to go to NYU. Those applications are going to be very different based on those schools' requirements. So a good place to start, along with observation hours, is to see where do you want to go, or what schools even interest you. And that can give you a good amount of information on what your next step should be. So if Clemson wants 300 observation hours and NYU wants 50, then a good place to start or to build a solid foundation is with observation hours, as opposed to NYU with only needing 50. Same thing with the different parts of your application when it comes to letters of recommendation, your essays, your interview, campus visits, virtual tours, whatever that is. I think a good place to start is just by branching out and seeing for the next 2, 3 years while I'm in grad school, where am I interested in going and why am I interested in going there? So I think that's a good start to build on your application. Then from there, the questions really just branch out like a tree. Um, then Joseph, go ahead and drop whatever knowledge you have, and I'll come back and give some more info.
Oh, you gonna leave it to me? No, I'm kidding. So first step is really the schools. Like where do I want to go? The example that I typically give, because it's what I'm most familiar with, is my relationship with my wife, right? Now tell me, like, let me know in the comments. It's gonna be a little, the example is gonna sound odd, but trust me, when it comes together, you'll be like, oh, that makes sense. So have you guys, say yes or no in the comments when I ask this question. Have you ever watched a professional sports game where somebody goes to propose at like halftime or whenever, and then the person being proposed to says no? If you've ever seen that before, can y'all let me know either yes or no, whether you've seen it live or on YouTube? Like, I've seen way too many of those, but if you've seen those before, just let me know in the chat. I want to see like how many of y'all have ever seen that before, because if you haven't, okay, so yes, okay, so nope, really, you haven't? No. All right, so if you guys want something comedic to watch tonight, go. It sounds bad, but it'll make sense. Like, go on YouTube and just say failed proposals or whatever at professional games. And so basically what happens is you're in a very public setting. A lot of people are watching, and you're asking one of the most important questions ever. And guess what happens? The person says no. So my question is always like, how did they not know that the other person was going to say no? Right? Because when I went to go propose to my wife, like, and like I said, this sounds like it's not about pre-PT, but it has everything to do with your application. Trust me. When I went to propose to my wife, I knew she was going to say yes. Why? Because we had talked about it. We had talked about it plenty, right? The only surprise was basically like how I was going to do it. Does that make sense so far? Okay, perfect. So what Casey's talking about is he's saying when you're identifying your schools, it's like starting a relationship with somebody. And by the time you go to submit your application, it's like the proposal. So think of a really good relationship. What has to happen for you to go from that initial like, hey, you look cute, or you're kind of funny, or whatever first impressions you get? What does it take to go from that to, oh, will you marry me? A lot, right? A lot of it is spending time understanding them, figuring out if y'all even work. Like, there's some people you'll go on a first date, and then afterwards you're like, yeah, this isn't gonna work out. Like, we were attracted to each other, but it ain't gonna work out. You chew with your mouth open or whatever you don't like, right? And so what happens is now the next step is like, okay, we date a little bit more. We talk more, right? Good relationships have good conversation. We start to be like, wow, this could actually work. Maybe it gets to the point where you decide, wow, maybe we could spend our lives together. You propose, right? And then, but by the time you get to that proposal, you've spent so much time understanding each other that there's really very little guesswork by the time you're actually asking for that proposal. And this is something that we were never taught as pre-PTs. Most students are not taught this. Most students try to go from, and this is where the whole anxiety of applying to PT school comes from, and can I build a strong application, and how's my 3.1 GPA going to compare to that person's 3.8 GPA? At the end of the day, it has nothing to do with the other people. It has everything to do with you figuring out which schools are right for me, kind of like which person is right for me. And then what do I need to do as a student to understand that school, to get to know that school, to research that school? Can I talk to students that go there? Can I figure out how my GPA matches up with theirs? Does it work? Maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't, there are plenty of other schools where it might work. My GRE, okay, cool. Now the questions you start asking is, okay, I know exactly what I need to do to become a strong applicant for that school. Who can help me, right? Maybe I have a study buddy to help me, get better grades because I need them, right? Maybe I get a tutor to help me with the GRE because it'll help me get the score that I need. But when you look at it from that standpoint, and I'm actually going to do a training on Sunday where I'll break this down even more, but that's how to build a strong application. It's not the answer you're ever looking for, but when you start looking at it from that perspective, then you're like, whoa, like me comparing myself to other people, or me getting to the point where I'm freaking out, like, what if I do all this hard work? I'm a sophomore. For those of y'all that are juniors, I'm a junior, I'm a senior. Like, what if it doesn't work out? Ask yourself, have I actually started from the jump where Casey was talking about? Have I figured out which schools I'm a match for? And then have I basically treated it like a relationship where I start to understand what that school is about, where I start to like now research, ooh, how does this whole application process work? How can I start building these pieces in relation to what that school wants? So that by the time you guys apply to PT school, you feel like there's very little guesswork. And that's like, that's really it. It's not that complicated in theory, but obviously it's a lot of hard work. But when you can start thinking of it that way, then all of a sudden you're more focused on the school and what you have to do to become the best applicant for these schools that you're falling in love with and your perfect match schools, as opposed to comparing yourself to all the thousands of other pre-PTs in the country. And to me, that's a lot less stressful. I'd rather focus on the schools I'm applying to than focusing on all the other scores and GPAs and all this other stuff that I'm seeing online on threads that other students have. Oh, they have a 3.8. Oh, that means I'm not going to be a good applicant. And so does that make sense? Or was that just kind of like some crazy abstract story y'all have never heard before? Because if that makes, just nod and be like, yep, that makes sense. Perfect. Because that's probably the best way I can tell you. And then everything else falls within that. Casey, take it away.
Yeah. I was just going to add to that and give some tangibles, because that's really it. And the answer that you were talking about before is people say, not saying that the person that was asking the question was saying it like this, but oftentimes other people are looking for the answer of, and I'll even give you the answer. A solid application could be a 3.4 GPA, a 300 GRE score combined, a 4,500 character essay, 3 letters of recommendation, and 2 volunteer experiences. Let's just say you're in the Clemson Pre-PT Club and you guys do a food drive, then you volunteer at a nursing home. That is a solid application. But what does that stand out to you? It sounds okay. Nothing necessarily wrong with it, but that's a solid application. But if I rattle that off to a certain amount of people, they might say, it's okay, but what else can I do? And the what else can you do is what Joseph was just talking about. And the what else can you do depends on what Joseph was just talking about what the school wants and how they are as a person. Because that solid application to us now, working with students over the years, is kind of just like a blank slate. Like you met the requirements, which is great, but what else? And that what else comes from what we talked about. So let's just say Clemson, you guys can maybe even tell me in the chat, does Clemson have a DPT program? I didn't think so, because I never really. So whatever school is closest, what's in the Carolinas? High Point. Let's just take High Point, for example. Let's just say High Point does a lot of local community service. And Duke University does tons, and they do tons of academic research. So if you're applying to both of those schools, you might want to have or think about having, especially if you're a sophomore, junior, or even senior, if you want to go to Duke more than High Point, you might want to maybe look into some research at some level. You don't have to write the paper. You don't have to make the results. You don't have to do the data, whatever level. You might want to think about getting into some research, since Duke is a huge old school research type of school. High Point, if they love local community service, you might want to create something small or big that shows that you have leadership in that service, in that experience, that you have some sort of time invested in that service, and you have some sort of results. Hey, we fed 500 people. Hey, we helped give 300 book bags over 2 years to grades 5 through 7. So just starting there at that basic level is how you can start cultivating a better than solid application. And the advice just goes on, and we can ramble all day from that. But I just wanted to add that on as a little sort of cherry on top so far. So good question. Good question. That was a huge blank slate that we can always ramble on. So good one.
Yeah, you guys just took that and run with it. So good. So the last one that just came up so much was all about PT Cast. Like, the ins and outs of it. How do I even start? All of that. So do with that what you will.
Okay. I guess I'll throw the question back to you guys. Is this more so of a question, and you can tell me in the chat, or if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask a specific question, is this question more so about, I don't know what PTCAS is and I want a general explanation, or is it a specific section of PTCAS that someone might be struggling with? If nobody answers, I'm going to go with the first one, that, hey, just tell me what PTCAS is. Because I think that might be more of what it is, especially from what the audience poll was. So with PTCAS, PTCAS stands for Physical Therapy Centralized Application Service. And for physical therapists, maybe nursing, pharmacy, dentistry, medicine as well, getting into those professional doctor level schools, they have the same thing. AMCAS, DAS, whatever, FarmCAS, it's the same thing. So it's basically a central service. It's a central software where you make a profile like Instagram. Then you click a few buttons, and that sends out your profile to the multiple schools that you want to apply to. Between 1 and however many are on PTCAS, 200 and some change, it sends those all out. And in that profile, you can put different information in based on what the schools want. So you put in your classes, you put in your letters of recommendation. That's where you put in your essay, your observation hours, you upload documents that calculates your GPA as well. You put in any supplemental information. You can put in documents on the side as well. Any GRE scores for standardized tests, so on and so forth. The list goes on and on. That is your Instagram profile. That is your Tinder profile. That's your Twitter, whatever that is, that's PTCAS. So what Joseph was saying, when you go and shoot out your application, you're trying to see who you match with on Tinder or on Bumble, whatever it is. Then from there, you start to build that relationship. So with PTCAS, it can get a little confusing and it could get a little scary because it is a big site. It is very technical. There's a lot of mistakes you can make. It can get very confusing with what buttons to press and how to put in information. But at the basic level, that's what it is. So the most technical part and the most, I guess the biggest thing people get tripped up on is inputting the classes. And especially since you guys are applying in the future, I recommend just making a profile on PTCAS. And if you want, you can start putting in classes, some classes that you've already taken. Now, you don't have to do this, but that just takes the longest time. And that's where people get tripped up the most. So if you want to open up a profile and go ahead and make one, you can start putting in some classes that you've taken your freshman year, or classes that you've taken so far in the fall, your sophomore year, junior year, so on and so forth. Right now, PTCAS does look like they're going to carry most of the information over from year to year. They did that last year. They're most likely going to do it again and again and again. Previous years, they did not do that. But this year, especially with the, I guess, new update they did, they pulled a lot of information forward. So if you have some time on your hands to make it less scary, just go on there and have some fun, browse around, put in an email, and make a password and start building your Tinder profile on PTCAS and see what it's all about so it can be less scary. The last thing about it is the actual PTCAS website. So I guess I should have started with this, but before you make a profile, you can browse around the PTCAS website. So yeah, I should have started with that. But if you go to the website, where you can start with looking into schools you might be interested in, like we first talked about, is program prerequisites. There's a tab called program prerequisites, and you go there, you click it, and it will take you to their new updated kind of news feed, like a Facebook, Instagram news feed. And you can kind of scroll and see their news updates. You can click a school and see their profile. You can see what their requirements are, just like a social media platform. So their update is pretty cool. So before you go make a profile, let's back up and start there. Just browse the website and click that program prerequisites tab and start just browsing around, having fun. Then after a couple of hours a day, whenever you want, make that profile and start making it less scary. So yeah, from my ramble session, are there any specific questions on PTCast? If not, then my ego's boosted and I feel like I did a good job with explaining it. So that's how that works. Has anybody been on PTCast before? I gotta scroll. I'm on my phone, so I might have to scroll. No, doesn't look like it. No. Okay, cool. So that's what it's about. Good question though.
All right. So that was the end of my questions pretty much. Did anybody in the group have a question that they brought with them tonight that they'd like answered? These two guys are obviously a wealth of knowledge. So
I have a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So I'm currently a senior and I'm planning to do a gap year, and I just was wondering like what you guys might suggest would be like a good route to do for the coming year. Like I have a couple ideas, but I don't think I necessarily want to be like a PT tech, because I know like a lot of people just get shadowing hours from there, but I actually want something that might like stand out, you know, for like the year that I'm doing my gap year. So what do you suggest might be some ideas for what I should do?
Sorry. So some things you can do is, this is gonna sound bad, or I don't know how it's gonna sound, but the thing you can do is whatever you want to do. And what I mean by that is that, like you kind of alluded to, you don't necessarily have to be a PT tech. You don't have to be an athletic trainer. Myself or Joseph was never one of those at all. And we're still physical therapists to this day. So I think it starts with what interests you, what might be easiest for you to do, what can give you enough time to work on your application and still keep your grades high if you need to take classes or retake classes. I think that all goes into what you end up doing in your gap year. Because you could travel if COVID allows. You could go on some mission trip somewhere. I know somebody who's in, where's she at? I don't think she's in Kenya, somewhere in Africa right now doing a mission trip. So it really is whatever you want to do. And why I say that is because you can make any experience help you stand out. Any experience can help you stand out. If you keep the three things I kind of mentioned before in mind. So let's just say you want a job in customer service, or you get a job in customer service and you as a golf caddy. So from those two things, from those customer service jobs, we're going to look at three factors: time, leadership, and results. So if you take a customer service job, you can talk about how long you've been there, whether it's 2 months or whether it ends up being in your gap year. That tells them, oh, this person is committed and they've been working here for the last 8 months or the last 12 months. Next, leadership. While you were there waiting tables at that restaurant, have you been promoted at all? Have your tips increased? Have you taken more shifts? Have you been promoted to manager or whatever that is? Have you moved to a different location? Who have you worked under? What have you learned? Then next, you can talk about your results. How much have you been getting paid? What has your network expanded to? To a physical therapy business if you want to open one, and what have you learned from that? What have you learned about marketing? What have you learned about sales? Have you made any sales calls? What has been your percentage with people coming in for sales with whatever you're selling? Are you bringing in customers for marketing, or are you doing the what's it called, like where you buy from other businesses that bring in the food and all that stuff? Which part are you in? The list can go on and on. Have you helped branch out to other franchises? The list goes on. And that tells them, okay, I wasn't a PT tech, but goddamn, holy shit, you did all of this working at a restaurant? That tells me all I need to know about what kind of person / applicant you are and will be. Then from that, you can talk about business. Let's just say, for instance, you were interviewing with someone who was interested in business. Now you are standing out on a completely different level to them than any other applicant. So that's why I say you can do whatever you want. So I hope that helped. Anything else, Joseph?
No, you nailed it. You nailed it. Yeah, no, it's typically, I think the reason why what Casey said is so important is the reason why uh, students ask questions like, should I get a master's degree? Should I, do this other thing? Because we've been taught that that's how to stand out. But Casey said it perfectly. You can make anything stand out as long as you communicate it in the way uh, that he pointed out. Those three steps really, really work brilliantly, and that's what schools really want to see. So, good question. But enjoy the gap year too. Any
Yes.
other questions? Any other questions, y'all?
I have two different questions. So I'll start with so what are some common characteristics of really good physical therapy school, and then like further on in the profession too?
Good qualities of a good physical therapy school, you said?
Like common characteristics of good students in physical therapy school.
Good question. Common characteristics of good students. I could flip the question, but I'm going to give you a few right now. So a few characteristics of good physical therapy students are students that are very like bounce back easily, because PT school is hard. That's not a secret. So very resilient. So basically, when you get a bad grade, you're able to say, all right, what can I do about it? Good PT students are good at working with other people, which is kind of weird because a lot of us have spent, at least when I was a pre-PT, a lot of pre-PTs really spent a lot more time competing against everyone else and feeling like it was them against the pre-PT world. But students that can actually work well with other classmates, because I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I mean, I'm a PT today, but I don't think I would have made it through PT school without quite a few of my classmates. And that was so important, like figuring out, okay, like who takes the best notes? Like literally it was that kind of detail. We're like, all right, you open a Google Doc during the lecture, you take fast notes. You two are gonna follow them like in the notes. Like literally, we did this stuff all the time. Okay, great. And then now we each find someone that we can kind of study with and review. And you have to rely on other people. Someone that is a good communicator. Great at communicating with their professors, great at articulating what they want. And this is someone that is a PT student. So this is like, I'm assuming that this is someone that has already gotten into PT school. And the reason why I'd probably keep it there, because everything else is just your personality. But those are the key things, because one thing that's very different from PT school and like one thing that's different between finishing physical therapy school and applying to PT school is that once you're in PT school, you really only have to survive. It sounds lazy, but it's not. Like it's really not. Like once you make it into PT school, you really just have to make it out. Like you just have to like hold on long enough, even if you barely make it. Like I had classmates that are great PTs today that barely made it. Like we would like my second year of PT school, I was at the bottom of my class, and I haven't injured a patient yet, and so once you're in PT school, just make it through. And I think like those elements of resilience, working with other people, I think what has to switch mentally too is when a lot of students go into physical therapy school, they still maintain that that kind of like edginess about them that got them there. That and that basically for a lot of students like alienates them, which is working against you, right? And so you have to almost do the exact opposite and be like, yo, I made it. Mama, I made it to PT school. All right, now let's figure this thing out. I need friends. I need people that I can work with. I'm going to talk to all the teachers. I'm going to become their best friends. I'm going to ask them all the questions. Everything that you believe you would want in a great student, that's all it is. It's survival at that point. And I think it's really that simple. And then from there, just remember, it's just someone that remembers why they're doing what they're doing, because everything else really falls in place after that. So it's not some big list of checklist stuff. If you want to be a PT and you're here and you make it to PT school, which you will, just survive. I don't know, Casey, would you add anything else to that? But I really do think that those are the best qualities in a PT student, and also someone that's willing to kind of push the agenda too. So like whatever the status quo is in that PT program, someone that's willing to kind of push the lines and say, hey, are there things that we can change? Because as a student, you can change a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things that were different after my class and Casey's class left our PT program. And it was just because the student said, hey, a team of students to man, I was there and I can't remember where did we go? Went to the Middle East, and I'm literally blanking. We went to Lebanon.
Lebanon?
Wow. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, we went to Lebanon, and that was strictly student led. That was something that we were like, yo, we want to figure out a way to have a mission trip outside of like, it was crazy stuff like that. And then after that, they started doing overseas stuff. I think Casey's class went somewhere, right?
Haiti.
Yeah, they went to Haiti. So as a student, someone that's able to do that also leaves a mark on the program. And so, but those are also some of the things that schools kind of want to see in they want to see some of that stuff on the front end. So just start thinking that way. And then you'll also start thinking, oh, wow, what can I showcase on the front end to show that I am resilient, to show that I can work well with other people, to show that I do have leadership qualities. Now, all those things that Casey was talking about start to make sense. So I hope that was a clear answer.
Yeah, no, that was a real answer. And then you kind of covered my second question, because I was just going to ask if y'all had any medical missions with physical therapy, but it sounds like you have.
Yeah, it's cool too, because it was probably the first time I felt like a PT, because it was before we did our big rotations. Like when you're in physical therapy school, y'all will have in rotations, internships, they call them different things at different schools, but you're basically a PT with the supervisor, right? And so because it was overseas, we could do a little bit more. Like it didn't have all the rules like in the States. So that was really, really cool. Got to be a little more independent, got like my own patients. So it was honestly super exciting too. You're obviously helping a lot of people, but you're also getting an early taste of what you signed up for and what you really wanted to do in your career. So yeah, hope that was clear. Case, anything to add up?
Well, I didn't go on any of the trips, so you got that one all day. But for the last one, just to add on to it, I feel like PT school was like broken, at least with our school, it was broken up into like two different things. Like you did your didactic work, your lecture work, then you went on to clinicals at our school. So it's like you needed two different skill sets. It was crazy. So yes, with the lecture stuff, you needed to be organized, you need to be resilient, diligent, you got to bounce back quick. If you got an F, you got to test tomorrow. You got to get an A on. Like you can't cry about that. Let's go. Like that's a totally different skill set than going into the clinic and being with a patient who is crying because they got pain in their back all the way down to your foot, and you're like, what do I do now? It's a different world. So I think thinking about some qualities that make you a good student there as well can help you be a better applicant, I guess, because that tells you you're forward thinking and you know what's about to happen and you're thinking about that situation because you're still a student there and you still reflect on the school. So maybe working on like your soft skills, like listening, your empathy, communication, like Joseph talked about, your articulation of your ideas, like so the concepts you learn in school. If somebody has shoulder pain, how well are you able to articulate where that and why that shoulder pain is there and why that's causing all these symptoms can make a huge difference with how the patient responds to you and what kind of outcomes they get. So that's all I really had to add to that one. Thinking about how you might be a student on clinicals, I think will help you a lot in your application.
Yeah, love it. Any other questions? No questions. Wow.
We got to invite them to the party on Sunday then.
Yeah, actually, I mean, so how many of y'all follow our platform? Because I think I'm gonna give y'all something cool to do if you don't, or if you do. All right. So if you don't, one thing that I think, especially for those, most of y'all are sophomores, there's a few juniors, some seniors in here, which is great. The biggest one thing that we really want students to just understand is that a lot of the things that y'all are scared of, because I we didn't even dive into that tonight. If you guys want us to dive into what y'all are scared of, we could do that. But one of the best ways to do that is just listen, constantly listen to other people's stories. Obviously we can answer questions all day long, but I think one of the best exercises is just to listen to other people's stories. It could be on our platform. It could be people you know personally. It could be people that you know that are friends. Maybe they're in PT school and they struggled big time. Just listen to their story and ask them, like, how did you deal with that stuff? Because it's easy for us to talk about the technical details like PT cast, the GRE, all that. I mean, that stuff, like anyone could talk about that stuff if they've had some experience with it. But the part that we just don't talk about enough is the other things, the doubt, the anxiety, the fear of rejection. When I'm a sophomore, it's like, oh, it's in the distance, and then it gets close and you're like, oh man, like what will my parents, no, it's real stuff. It's like, what will my family think? What will my friends think? They know I've been, some people even keep their pre-PT journey a secret because they're like, if I don't get in, I don't want other people to see that I fail. So all those different layers, you'll start to lift that mindset if you just listen to other people's stories. So if y'all want, obviously we have quite a few on our platform where we just interviewed students that we have coached and just listen to them. Just listen to them and use that to just help you stay locked in. Listen to their experiences. Some of them have had GPAs as low as 2.4s. See, y'all never heard, and they're currently in PT school. Some of them have been rejected to as many as 15 schools in a given cycle and have gone on the next cycle to, basically have 4 interviews and 4 acceptance, so that stuff sounds crazy, but when you hear it, you're like, wow, like those are some of the things that even if I've never applied before, I can start thinking about those things. So I'd invite y'all to do that. I mean, I think we actually have one tonight. I'm like at 9, like in 45 minutes, I'm actually doing a live interview of a student. So if you're on Facebook and you have time, feel free to listen tonight. But is it okay if I invite them to a free training we're doing on Sunday?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
All right. So we're actually doing a free acceptance training. And I think it's the best time to start is probably as a freshman to just prepare for this stuff. So y'all are sophomores and juniors and seniors. So, I mean, why not? But we're calling it the 2021 PT School Acceptance Masterclass. And basically, we're going to teach you guys a lot of the key elements that students that we have coached have used to get themselves into PT school, regardless of where they were in the whole process. So if you guys want to learn more and just, really take a good hour and a half to just grow and just say, wow, like these are some of the other layers outside of just PT cast and the things that we generally talk about. This is how to really, that question of how to become a really strong applicant. Oh, we're going to unpackage that extremely well so that now, regardless of where you guys are at, you can start building up and setting yourself up to get accepted into PT school. So if you'd like to join us, it's free. It's leveluptheprept.com. You can go there and save your seat and all that stuff, and then we'll see you there. And if you can't make it live, you can watch it on replay. But yeah, the resources are there, guys. Never feel like your dream is far out of reach. I know we're all in different places. So if you ever feel like, maybe this isn't my calling, well, just listen to your initial instincts. Like, is this what you want? If this is what you want, then it's extremely possible, right? Like, it's extremely possible, regardless of what you're feeling now, regardless of what doubts you're experiencing, it's extremely possible. And it's really what we want y'all to hold on to, because if this is the career that you want to be doing in 10 years, 20 years, why not go ahead and do it? And so that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for allowing us to just add value to your evenings, and looking forward to help you guys in any way that we can.
Yes, thank you so much. And then do you guys have a link that maybe you could drop in the chat for what's happening this weekend?
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yep, let me see. I love
You got it.
Oh, it has the 2 dots. Hold up. See, I can't even. Y'all ever do that? You just add an extra period? Separate. All right. That one should be perfect. Yep, that's the link, y'all.
Awesome.
And also feel free to just message us, guys. Like this, y'all don't. You never have to feel alone with the application process. You really don't. And so anytime you guys have questions, feel free to reach out to us on any of our platforms. Say, hey, got a question. I'm stuck. PT guys, GRE. I'm stressing out. Whatever it is, and we'll help you out in any way that we can, and help you make this dream real. That's
Yeah.
it.
Well, amazing. Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. I know that so many of us here tonight really needed to hear some of that. Really great way to start off our semester. But yeah, guys, we'll send out an email with all of their contact information, links to Instagram, Facebook, all the things so that you guys can get in there, in the know with what's going on with Pre-PT Grind. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming out. We really, really
Thanks for
appreciate it.
inviting us.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
Thank you. We love doing this. So any other time y'all need us, let us know. All right. Thank you guys. Have a great evening.
you.
Take care.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right. No
Thank you.
problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.